Kourtney Kardashian became extremely angry after Kris Jenner tried to get back in touch with her and restore the relationship between them. Because Kourtney previously broke off all contact between them and decided to distance herself from her mom for a while, since Kris never treated Kourtney the same as her other daughters. But now Kris has done everything in her power to restore their bond. She even showed up unannounced with a huge bouquet of flowers at Kourtney's house, which turned out as a complete mess. So what happened? Despite being Kris's firstborn child, Kourtney's relationship with Kris has always been very complicated. They've had several serious altercations since the family's reality show was launched back in 2007. For example, during season 1 of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Kourtney wanted to get married in Las Vegas to her now ex-boyfriend Scott Disick. However, Kris talked her out of it, saying that it's a family thing and everyone had to be there and that Kourtney shouldn't want to get married that way. In hindsight, this was a good decision because Scott definitely wasn't the one, but the point is that Kris was always trying to get into Kourtney's business and control her. Kourtney seemed really happy with Scott back then, and they both wanted to tie the knot, and yet Kris made it all about her and everyone else, instead of making it about Kourtney and Scott. Besides that, Kourtney still holds a lot of resentment towards Kris because Kourtney was very close to her late father Robert Kardashian Sr., and Kris broke up the family when she cheated on Robert with former professional soccer player Todd Waterman. Kourtney and Kris had an explosive argument over Kris's affair after Kris tried to compare her cheating with Todd to Kourtney having a relationship with her then-boyfriend Eunice Benjamin. But as Kourtney pointed out, her situation with Eunice was completely different because she wasn't married to Scott. They weren't even in a relationship at the time.
You can't compare one to the other. That's absolutely not true.
Also keep in mind that Kourtney was 12 years old when her father Robert divorced Kris, which means she probably vividly remembers how much pain and drama Kris caused to the family with her affair, and it's really messed up for Kris to compare what she did to Kourtney dating Eunice. But this wasn't the only time Kris tried to humiliate Kourtney on their reality show. After Kourtney finally ended things with Scott for good, Kris suddenly started pressing her to get married to Scott, and Kardashian fans speculated that Kris only wanted Scott to stay around because he was entertaining for the show. Even after Kourtney made it clear that she wanted to date someone else after spending years being on and off with Scott, Kris still tried to shame her for trying to live her life.
It would always be so fabulous if it was the dad of your children, you know?
Wouldn't that be a dream?
Yeah. And I think he fits well with all of us because we've all been around each other for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And as you all probably know, Kris manages all of her children and apparently takes 10% from the children's businesses. Kourtney herself hired Kris to manage her back in 2008. However, it seems like Kris never trusted Kourtney to make it big, and she decided to focus on her two most profitable daughters, Kim and Kylie. Kris even missed Kourtney's first ever photo shoot as her manager because back then she was still busy trying to push Kim into the spotlight following Kim's private tape scandal. Kourtney even tried to fire Kris 3 or 4 times. Rumors went around that Kourtney finally managed to escape Kris's clutches and got herself a new manager. Apparently, this didn't go over too well with Kris, and fans speculated that Kris ignored Kourtney on purpose and refused to promote her business ventures just because she couldn't beg her 10%. It's also very odd that Kris didn't post any photos of Kourtney at the 2022 Oscars, despite Kourtney being the first Kardashian gender member to attend the event. Before we move on to Kris's attempt to restore the relationship, like this video and subscribe to our channel to be informed about new juicy Kardashian updates. To continue with Kris's childish actions, she completely ignored the launch of Kourtney's Lemmy Purr gummies, but she continued to post every Skims, Good American, and Kylie Cosmetics drop. Kris has also been heavily promoting Kendall's tequila brand 818 Tequila, and she even manages her reclusive son, Rob's Instagram account. Kris is all about the cash, and she's mad that she can't make 10% from Kourtney's business ventures. That's why Kris refuses to promote Kourtney's businesses, because even if she no longer manages Kourtney, she doesn't want to help out her own daughter. Fans dragged Kris and the rest of the Kardashian sisters for ignoring Kourtney, and they're calling them hypocrites because they've been shaming Kourtney for years for not having a business and accusing her of being lazy. But now that Kourtney started something of her own without her momager's help, they're showing zero support. Sources close to Kourtney are saying that she's as unbothered as ever and is enjoying the peace and quiet that comes from not dealing with the family on a daily basis. For this reason, Kourtney decided to distance herself from her mum because Kris never treated Kourtney the same as her other daughters. Kris resents Kourtney for not making it easy for her to manipulate her decisions in her career and personal life. Kim and the others are her puppets and moneymakers, while Rob and Kourtney lived life on their terms. Since Kourtney began going to therapy, she has been open about how she's managed to notice her family's toxic dynamics and behavioral patterns. But most of Kourt's family members have made it known over the years that they're not quite as keen to seek therapy when it comes to working on themselves. Nonetheless, Kourtney has continued to try to explain the importance of therapy to her family members numerous times over the years. She tried to talk about therapy with Kris several times, but Kris cut her off and diverted the topic every time. After this, Kourtney stated that her mum is a massive control freak, and when she's around her mother, she realizes that she never wants to be that way. This left Kourtney unable to discuss her issues with Kris. Kourtney revealed that she tried to talk to Kris about this one last time to improve their relationship, but a major argument arose, and Kourtney broke off all contact. This went well for a month. According to Kourtney, Kris regularly called her or sent a message, but Kourtney ignored this, and after that it became quiet. They did see each other at joint family gatherings, such as birthdays and holidays. But during these moments, Kourtney kept her distance from Kris, until Kris suddenly appeared at her door with a large bouquet of flowers and a handwritten letter. According to an insider, Kris joked that Kourtney will never get rid of her, and this went wrong with Kourtney. Despite this, she did let her mother in, but she pointed out to Kris that it takes time and that she should not force herself on her. And now it just takes extra time, after which she sent Kris away.
I feel like the things that she says to like me and Kim about you, like she should say to you.
She should.
According to the insider, Kourtney finds it an extremely difficult situation. She obviously loves her mother, but no longer wants to be confronted with the negative vibes that come with it. Also, from a business perspective, Kourtney does not want her mother to interfere with her activities. This has improved since Kris is no longer her manager. According to the insider, Kourtney wants a normal bond with her mother, but it sometimes seems impossible. It turns out that Kris is upset by Kourtney's rejection, or at least that's how it feels to her. According to Chloe, Kris finds it very difficult to distance herself from Kourtney and listen to her wishes. That's also Kris's problem, letting go of control and waiting. That's really something my mother can't do, Chloe said. So it's clear that the bond between the two hasn't been mended yet.